I hope that we build on the past. They say you stand on the shoulders of giants.
That was the most delightful mission I have ever had.
St. Vincent Infirmary. He said, that's the best hospital in the state of Arkansas.
Following the Revolutionary War, Catholic families began to migrate from Maryland to the frontier of Kentucky. Bishop Benedict Joseph Flaget was overwhelmed by the responsibility of providing education for the children of the families who had migrated to Kentucky. In response to this need, Father Jean-Baptiste Marie David called for young women willing to devote their lives to the service of the Church. From among the first group of women, Catherine Spaulding was chosen to lead them. In December 1812, Father David and Catherine Spaulding formed the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth. Catherine Spaulding served as Mother Superior until her death in 1858.
Our first home was a log cabin, and they were there for 10 years, and they had worked very hard to build the school, and they found out that they couldn't own the land there, and she felt that it was important that we would be able to have ownership for the places where we did our ministry. And so they had to leave, and they were able to come here. They found this place, and they were able to come here, and I think, you know, that shows her spirit and her risk. There was nothing here. We got into healthcare because there was a need that grew out of the cholera epidemic in the 1830s in Louisville, and our sisters became nurses overnight and went out and nursed the people and took risks. Catherine Spaulding herself was going out to care for someone sick when she caught pneumonia, and that developed into an illness that ended her life eventually. But the point of that is that she was in service and willing to take the risks that the service demanded of her.
As the community grew, so did the geographic scope of services, with schools, hospitals, and orphanages established in Bardstown, Louisville, Memphis, and Little Rock. Like the little grain of the mustard seed, this little grain would blossom to become a significant contribution to Catholicism in Kentucky, the Midwest, and around the world. In 1888, Bishop Edward Fitzgerald invited the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth to Little Rock to establish the Charity Hospital after a yellow fever epidemic, which ravaged the South, spared the city. Little Rock had few physicians and no hospital at that time. Many, including Mr. and Mrs. Alexander Hager, believed only an act of God would stop the plague. The Hagers were so grateful the city was spared, they provided the funds to build a hospital. This was the first hospital outside the boundaries of Kentucky the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth would operate. Later, the name of the hospital was changed to St. Vincent Infirmary in honor of St. Vincent de Paul, a French priest who compassionately cared for the sick and the poor. It was Vincent de Paul with whom the Sisters of Charity feel so closely aligned.
But we stressed humility, simplicity, and charity in the spirit of St. Vincent de Paul. And I know that Vincent de Paul is St. Vincent Infirmary, and we want to keep it true to St. Vincent.
This is the beginning of the heritage we celebrate today.
Sister Margaret Vincent's name comes up, you know, as someone who was very much an administrator, but she was so relational with the people. I remember my older sister graduated from the practical nurse program and worked night duty, and she would say that Sister Margaret Vincent often would come on duty at night and visit the floors and visit the patients and staff and so forth.
Dear Sister TJ, she was well known by everybody. She, you know, she was a short person. She wore the veil, and people recognized her and loved her. I remember most of all some people that would visit with her in the cafeteria in the morning and sit down and have coffee with her. These would be volunteers, they would be families of former patients that still came back to see Sister TJ and enjoyed her. And she just took an interest in everybody, and people related to that. They need to know the story. We need to keep the story alive. When I was at St. Vincent, there were a few times I would give the orientation for new employees, and I was always asked to do the history part of it, to tell how the sisters got into healthcare, how we first came to Little Rock and started the hospital. Then they would come alive, and they would get so interested in the history and in the story of the first sisters, in the story of our founders, Mother Catherine. So keep the story alive is what I would say. Learn it in your heart, and because it will be a source of inspiration and a source of courage for you.
My hope is that it can remember its story, remember the roots from which it came, and to carry those roots and those values, that commitment into the future, because it has something that no other healthcare entity in Little Rock has, because it has that spirit and it has that commitment and that sense of being a place where people can find God.
Friendliness here and a sense of compassion, and there's a spirit of simplicity and humility and charity, which really is, we would say those would be the charism or the spirit of the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth that has not been lost. I'm in holistic health. I'm a nurse by background, and I think that that spiritual dimension is just tremendously important, and it's an attitude that I think we carry as we walk, as we work, as we carry out the mission that's carried out here.
Well, Catholic means universal. So that means welcoming all people. And I know you have to pay the bills, that's a given. And I know that you have to work hard so that you stay within your budget. But each person is important, each person is precious, and each person should be welcomed.
The message I would give would be one that would encourage them to look at being here as a ministry, that they are the healing hands of Jesus. That's what it's all about. And if they are the healing hands of Jesus, if they are the presence of Jesus, then they have the compassion, they have the gentleness, they have that spirit, that spirituality that brings us to what we're all about.
Learn all you can about it, but learn to put yourself into it and do the best for the person that you're serving that you can. And I think they did that. I hope they still are. I better go down there and find out.
That they are not just a worker there, that they are a minister. And as a minister, they are continuing the work of Jesus Christ, which happens to be the healing ministry. And that ministry will be done by them or it won't be done.
That, each person I meet today, I'm St. Vincent to that person. I'm Jesus Christ to that person at this moment, bringing health care, showing interest, just showing respect. And that makes such a huge difference to people, especially if you're suffering, hurting, in need. And if somebody takes that special moment to show an interest in you, it makes all the difference.
Stand tall on the sisters' shoulders.
That all of us really stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us.
There's a saying that, quote, "We stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us." Climbing atop those shoulders is one thing. Striving to gain our balance once we have arrived is another. But the perspective we experience from this vantage point encourage us to stand tall and trustingly.
So stand tall on the shoulders of giants. You know our foundation is strong. As we walk in their footsteps, their legacy lives on. Their